Hello, it's Randy Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randy Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
So this fight's in my bones. It's on my birth certificate. And I named my daughter, her middle name is Emma. Named for Emma Lazarus, the great poet who wrote those lines on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. What with the rest? So, this executive order was mean-spirited and un-American. It was implemented in a way that created chaos and confusion across the country, and it will only serve to embolden and inspire those around the globe who will do us harm.
So Chuck Schumer made that announcement when all this happened. I mean, everybody knows what happened over the weekend, right? I didn't even have to discuss it with you. I mean, we have a Muslim ban, not a complete and total, as he promised, not a complete and total. You know why he has business? He has business in certain Muslim countries. He's got business in Indonesia. He's got business in Saudi Arabia. He's got business in Pakistan. He's got business in the United Arab Emirates. You know, he's got business in those places. And what's really interesting is that the people in Saudi Arabia and the hijackers from the United Arab Emirates, they were on those 9/11 planes. There was no Iraqis on those planes. There were no Iranians on those planes. There were no Syrians on those planes. You know, none of those people were on those planes. But the people that he's decided to do a partial Muslim ban on, based on their religion, by the way. And we know this because he said he would, do something special for the Christians. So he is, discerning who's who by their religious faith, which is completely and utterly illegal and unconstitutional under our laws. There shall be no religious test in this country. But okay, so he's got this partial Muslim ban. So it's a victory for the haters in this country who have never met a Muslim. And it all started on when the president, the Holocaust Remembrance Day. I mean, this is amazing to me. Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day when when the entire world says how sorry they are that they ever listened to or went along with or countenanced or ignored Hitler's final solution to get rid of the Jews in the world. And they never mentioned the Jews. They thought that the media thought maybe they forgot to mention the Jews. Maybe they forgot. But no, they said we didn't forget. We meant to do that. Yeah, they said that they mentioned innocent people. And as Stephen Bannon will tell you, the phrase innocent people, apparently does not apply to Jews because he hates them. These are white nationalists. These are, of course, he'll only tell you that in the strictest confidence. But Hope Hicks said when they asked, did you forget to remember the Jews on Holocaust Remembrance Day? She said, we are an incredibly inclusive group. And so we took into account all those who suffered without giving the Jews special treatment, like Hitler did during the Holocaust. Yes, it's true. Many groups suffered in the Holocaust, but the reason for the Holocaust was Hitler was singling out the Jews. Hitler is the reason for this season, for this Remembrance Day. So, it wasn't like with Trump, with Muslims and Mexicans and members of the media and the academia and all. See, they all get equal treatment. They're all despised. And this is what they're saying, you can't call this a Muslim ban because we hate Latinos too. We slighted the Jews. We just slapped them up, in the face. We hate Black Lives Matter. We hate them too. So we're all inclusive when we hate is what it is. Then he passes this, he writes this executive order that was illegal, immoral, and incoherent, which is the full Trump. because he says he's keeping America safe from apparently Oscar-nominated filmmakers and child refugees and translators who helped us during our war in Iraq, which is now over. This is an amazing thing. And of course, you saw Chuck Schumer there. Trump could not let this moment go by without, being a man-child either. He said that Chuck Schumer was faking his tears, that he faked it, that he knows Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is not a crier. He faked his tears, is what it is. No, we're having a coup. We're having a soft coup. We're not having a military coup. And I know if you look up the word coup in the dictionary, it's going to say violent. And that's why, I've been calling it a hostile takeover. But this is more than that now. I mean, this is really, this is a ban based on religion. This was an omission of people who were slaughtered based on their religion, in the remembrance of the slaughter based on their religion. And then to top off the beauty of the weekend, he puts Steve Bannon on the National Security Council. I mean, honest to God, Steve Bannon on the National Security Council? Feel very insecure, everybody. Bannon is unconfirmed, and he's the editor of Breitbart, is what it. I mean, he has the director of national intelligence and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff downgraded in the National Security Council, and he puts Breitbart in instead. I don't even think Hitler moved this fast to get the Nazi propagandist in charge of their national security plans. I'm not sure. This is so unbelievable that you can't even. There are no words. I mean, he's leading this nation off of a cliff, is what he's doing. And people are pushing back. Good for you. Get out there. These flash protests are great, but I got a funny feeling that middle America is going to go, what, do you have to protest everything? What, do you have to protest Muslims too? They hate us. No, Muslims don't hate us. The Iraqis that are here because they helped us during the war. They helped us. They translated, they risked their lives, they put their families' lives in harm's way. This is incredible. Why Iraq? Why would you ban people from Iraq? It makes no sense. Syrians, all these 7 countries, I think it's been pointed out, I hope it's been pointed out enough that everybody can say this without having to look it up. Those 7 countries, 0 of their people have ever committed an act of terrorism on the United States. 0. Okay? However, 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. No ban on the Saudis coming back and forth. The others were from the United Arab Emirates, where, Trump also has business, so there's no ban on them coming back and forth. In fact, it's so weird. I'm watching all this stuff on CNN, and, you're seeing people just, debate whether or not this is constitutional, or whether or not Trump's really lost his mind, or whether or not, the man is bringing chaos, whether or not he's emboldening ISIS because he's declaring a war against Islam, which is exactly why people on the Democratic side would not call it radical Islamic terrorism. They would just call it radical terrorism. That's it, because they didn't want to even give an instant of the ability for ISIS to say that there was a war, the West was conducting a war against Islam. That is, so they would just call it radical terrorism. But, he is obviously starting a war. He is obviously doing it. There is no question he's doing it. He is provoking people who would never, ever, ever do anything to hurt the American people. People who look at the United States as a beacon of freedom. People who look at the United States as the place that they wish they could get to. And, they're extremely vetted. We showed you that on Friday. We went through the whole infographic. If you didn't see it, get a podcast and redo. Friday's show, we left it up for free. So you can see that, on the YouTube channel, or you could see it on the Facebook channel, or I even think the Periscope is still live from Friday. So you can, see that whole show for free on at least 3 platforms. But I tell you, he's starting a war is what he's doing. He's provoking people. He's provoking ISIS. He wants something to happen so he can be a wartime president and suspend things like habeas corpus, which, by the way, is what the court ruled on. Four court orders came out as a result of this Muslim ban this weekend, and all four courts decided that you need to invoke habeas corpus, meaning produce the people. Let the people go, is what they were saying. Produce the people. At least let the people have access to their lawyers. Produce the people that you're holding and let them have access to attorneys. Because nobody gets on an airplane bound for the United States without the proper papers. It doesn't happen. And, people in this country are so ignorant of, what goes on when you travel outside the United States because they don't even have passports. They don't have a clue what it takes to get a visa to go to Russia or what it takes to get a visa to come to in the United States. They have no clue. These are long processes. They have no earthly idea what it takes to get into this country or to get into other countries. They just don't know because they've never traveled. And it's just like the crazy part of the whole weekend, beyond the chaos, beyond the sickness of it, beyond the hatred of people who have done nothing to us, beyond, his not counseling or taking counsel from anybody but Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner, who's going to bring Middle East peace, of course, as we ban Muslims and declare a war on an entire religion of 1.5 billion people as a country of 320 million people. Yeah, those are good odds. I like that. But I mean, when you look at how this all unfolded and how chaotic it was, and that he puts Steve Bannon into the National Security Council, a man who is unvetted, a man who isn't confirmed by the Senate, and demotes the military from the National Security Council. You just have to sit there and say, look, it could be worse because he could have just put Putin in there. And then on the other hand, you go, no, it can't be any worse. It just can't. We are actually seeing a coup in this country. Donald Trump has decided that he's going to keep his own private security force. Okay, I would guess it's Eric Prince that's providing him a security force. I mean, where would you get one? Creating contretemps between the Secret Service and his private security force. I mean, he's put his private political advisor into the National Security Council, and no president has ever done such a thing. Do you know why? Because no president, no matter what party they were from, no matter what their foreign policy looked like, no matter what their economic policy looked like, no single president has ever wanted to politicize intelligence briefings, ever, or give the appearance of politicized intelligence briefings. But this president is showing you everything. He is showing you that a white supremacist is going to have a seat at the table when it comes to who we hate and who we retaliate against. And I mean, and if you don't see the Muslim ban as related to, the Latino deportations, you're not looking close enough. You're not. Because when they did this ban, they said people with green cards. Okay, the original executive order said people with green cards could be prohibited from re-entering this country. And that affects every single legal person who is here with a green card, no matter where you're from. That means and now they've backtracked that, but it's still in the executive order. They're just saying it on the TV. They haven't changed anything. Okay? This is just bizarro world. This is just unbelievable. And you see, senators crying at press conferences. 4 members of Congress went to 4 different airports this weekend, and they were not permitted to talk to Customs. They were not allowed to talk to Customs, even though in their hands they had court orders that said that these people with green cards had to be released, and the people who were here coming on visas had to have access to attorneys. And our Customs and Border Patrol agents at the airports violated a court order. What does that then mean? It means the rule of law is falling apart in this country. And that's how I come to my conclusion that we are seeing a soft coup. It isn't because he did something that I find heinous, ugly, insensitive, or dangerous, because ISIS is celebrating this all over the internet. They're celebrating. They say, see, we told you, our loyal soldiers, the West is having a war against Islam. The war is against Islam and Muslims, even though no one has killed more Muslims than ISIS. No one. Why would you want to feed them? Why would you want to give them any sort of an indication that they were right on anything at all? It's really sick and twisted. But then you look at what the outgoing intelligence community has said about this, and they said exactly what I just said. This is giving, all kinds of legitimacy to ISIS's claim that the West is fighting against Islam itself and not fighting against them. We were saying that they were illegitimate and they were a death cult. And they had to be stopped. But they've been saying we're not a death cult. We may have to kill some Muslims to protect all Muslims. But this is why we exist. We exist because the West is having a war on Islam. And of course, no, we weren't. But when you combine what Donald Trump has said about the Iraqi oil, taking the Iraqi oil and then prohibiting Iraqis from coming into this country, Iraqis who helped us during the war, Iraqis with green cards, Iraqis with permanent residency here. Just all Iraqis can't come. And then you look at the court order that says, oh no, if they have green cards, then you must let them in. And if they have visas, you must allow them access to the attorneys. You have 4 Congress members going to 4 different airports saying, I'm demanding that these people have access to attorneys. And Customs and Border Patrol won't allow the court order to be carried out. Then you have a breakdown in law. And when the United States laws break down, like I said, we're going to have a civil war in this country, okay, where people refuse to enforce the law in certain positions and other people enforce, because there were good Samaritan Custom and Border Patrol agents. There were good Samaritan Custom and Border Patrol agents that say, this is a kid, this is a 5-year-old, this is an 11-year-old, this is a woman who is an attorney, this is a war hero, this is a guy who was a translator. There were good Samaritans, but for the most part, no, they would not let these people have access to their attorneys, and they were still holding people with green cards 19 hours, 24 hours. This is not a one-day thing. This is a breakdown of the enforcement of our laws. This is a proclamation by a king, a proclamation by an authoritarian, a proclamation by a dictator that is going to make us less safe, not more safe, and violates the Constitution. But it's all almost a smokescreen so that Bannon could be part of the National Security Council, so that our national security is going to have political aims rather than protection of the American people. The aim of our National Security Council now is to elevate Trump politically with propaganda. That's sick. That's not American. Go to RandyRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.